Hi and welcome. And today or this evening, I have someone who has kindly agreed to join me here. And I'd like Neville, if you could introduce yourself, please,
Thank
and
you
what you
very
do.
much. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you. My name's Neville, and I do insurance. Look after a team. We look after legal liabilities for commercial risks. That's things like factories and offices and restaurants and hotel chains and things like that. And part of my job is looking after the team who report into me and looking after our numbers and how we are making profit. And the other half of my job is working at the coalface, as it were, underwriting individual risks.
Okay, thank you for that. And is this for just London or the whole of the UK or worldwide, or what is this?
Okay, it's basically for business in the UK.
Okay, so it's quite a responsible position.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, and you're dealing with people every day, I gather, in that, not just in your own teams, but as you said, in the wider community, when you're dealing with people, I suppose, who are requiring insurance for new businesses, new builds, or is it just for companies? And
So dealing with the team, as you say, and then what you might call internal customers, in other words, colleagues from other departments, actuarial functions, management-related things, fellow underwriters, and so on. And then the people who we actually negotiate business with, that's our customers, so that'd be insurance brokers, for example. So that's the breadth. And during the course of the day, probably maybe say up to 30 people might be talking to, obviously some of those internal and others those external. And that communication might be by email or telephone conversation or face-to-face conversations, which could be anything from one of our breakout areas or meeting rooms through to our main business hub area where we talk business with our brokers who come in to visit us.
the first thing that came into my head then was risk adverse. So I suppose, are you dealing with people that are mainly risk adverse? Do you, on a personal level, I suppose you don't clarify them in business saying, right, they're risk adventurers and they're risk adverse. If you're dealing with risk, are you mainly dealing with people that are risk adverse?
No, not really. You have to have a positive attitude towards risk. Otherwise, you'd be scared of the things that you're going near, and that's probably not a good attitude.
What do you mean a positive attitude towards risk?
You need to embrace it and see the positives, see the opportunities. Obviously, be mindful of the downfalls, but you have to be inherently optimistic.
Really?
Yes.
That surprises me. I thought it would be, people that are risk adverse are going to make sure that they get insurance on new ventures. And wow, so you're dealing with fairly positive people.
Okay, so individually, some of them might be a bit more risk averse, but the point is you need to look and see that the glass is half full rather than half empty. You need to inherently believe that the business model does work, and
Okay.
that if you do the things you propose to do, that they will have the outcome that you expect them to.
Wow, that surprises me. I wanted to talk to you today or this evening, about management as far as relationships in your field of what you've come across personally, and also in general, what do you think of relationship management? Basically on how people get on with each other in business and in business transactions.
Well, it's really important. You're dealing with people, and those people matter. Their opinions matter, and if you want to achieve an outcome, you're going to be doing that using the skills of other people, and so it's important that you get their buy-in, that their cooperation. If you have that on board, then basically you've got a team that works, whether it's departmentally, whether it's divisionally, whether it's as a company, and if you're working constructively with who your customers are, that's the people who you trade with, the third parties, then you have the proverbial win-win situation, as it were, where everybody is benefiting with what you yourself are looking to achieve.
Okay, so how do we get our employees to have that same attitude that you've just said. You know, just because they buy in or are supportive of a business plan, do they have the skill set to utilise relationship management?
To varying degrees, sometimes yes. I mean, obviously you'll get cultural differences from people from different countries, for example, either in Europe or if you're dealing with people from America or maybe from the Far East. So you have cultural differences there to take account of, and individual people will have will vary individually, you know, and some of them will be maybe introvert, some of them will be more extrovert. So you have to tailor your own style and how you come across according to the people that you're dealing with, and to take account of them.
You touched on cultural dimensions. That's something that I'm very, very passionate about. I don't think that we are trained well enough in cultural dimensions in business and in our personal lives. I think that there is a lot of assumptions made. When I first came to England, you know, everyone had lined up and they were queuing. And I thought, well, how ridiculous is that? And I marched straight to the front of the counter and, you know, they served someone and then I said, excuse me, I want blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I got a tap on the shoulder, very polite, tap on the shoulder, excuse me, there's a queue. And I went, yes, I know. And I thought, how silly that there's a queue. I don't know. I didn't know that there was a tacit rule that we needed to queue. I would like to see this in a more formal training program in businesses, that we are going to educate our staff on EQ, we're going to educate our staff on cultural dimensions, we're going to educate our staff on how to communicate with each other. I'd like to sort of get that to change. Do you think that will be embraced, or do you think it's going to be far too slow, or do you think it's happening now, or should we not bother?
If you want an outcome to happen, you need to push for it, don't you? It's if something is important to you, then you need to push and promote it. There is certainly an understanding that about differences between individuals, and actually understanding how you come across is a key part in affecting getting more out of the people that you deal with, whether it's your own employees or indeed your customers who you trade with. So having an attitude that is positive towards them, and basically learning and being open to change in accordance with how they want to do business or how they want to be treated or respected. If you have that sort of positive attitude, as you say,
stepping into their shoes,
relationship management, then yes, you will be better for it, and you've got a better chance of longer term success. Yes.
Do you think it would be, I mean, for me, I think it'd be a benefit to have it more formal, to have it in businesses and have it as part of a training program. Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think that we need to learn from osmosis? Do we just learn from our leaders? Do we need a review system where I know they talk about TripAdvisor. Do we need a more formal review system of customers talking about our, office employees? Do you think that you need to be reviewed by your customers? Are you reviewed by your customers?
Well, we do a 360 appraisal process. So,
does that include your customers in that, or just the?
That just happens to be internal. But
do we need to make that outside?
Yeah, certainly can do. It's. I think the long and the short here is that the more you understand the customer who you're selling to, and the more you understand their outlook and their perspective, probably the more successful that you will be. And that is as much a cultural thing, and yeah, there is certainly an opportunity to for this to be a more recognised discipline, and that companies that go this route, and people, individuals who go this route, will probably end up being more successful than if they simply arrogantly go their own way without a due regard for the people that they're dealing with.
Well, you mentioned soft skills. I think soft skills are becoming much more prominent in business. I'd like to see them in there because they're involving emotions, and I'd like to see that we utilise the personality traits of our staff rather than trying to put that traditional round peg in the square hole. I'd like to say, okay, this person is passionate about such and such. They're not moody, they're passionate about it. Go another level, take that label off and go another level. I would like to see us utilising our employees' emotions, and I think there is still the old school in there of, oh, we don't want to deal with them. They might be teary-eyed, they might be moody, they might be angry. So we just need to get on with the task. I'm not saying we completely go down an emotional route. I think there needs to be a portion of that taken in place. And I think we're going to get better. We get better output. We get healthier and happier employees, and we get well-being. I was looking at a study on the legal profession. They have an enormous amount of stress. An enormous amount of people leave the legal profession. They forget their vision, and part of it is that they won't let their employers know that they are under that level of stress. Even though the company's saying, hey, you can be transparent here, they don't want to let anyone know, so they're taking on more workload, they're doing it at home, they're feeling more and more stressed, therefore the quality of work they're producing is less. The decisions that they're making are risky, and when I've spoken to a number of them, they just don't want to let their employer know that they're experiencing that level of stress, even though they've said, hey, we're transparent here, because they've seen people end up being manoeuvred out. And I think something needs to be done about that relationship management. That way of managing isn't working. It's being hidden, and people are leaving. Do you have any idea of how we could change that at all?
Yes, I think what you're saying there is, on the one hand, you've got organisations which are basically saying that they are open towards their employees and encourage them to express more freely how they feel, but on the other hand, those employees are actually scared about their own jobs, fearful of losing their own jobs, and feeling stressed, and actually don't feel that they can.
There's not the safety there that
go along with what the company is apparently alluding to, as it were, and they don't actually believe it's true. And so actually they feel stressed, and actually they work more harder and sort of more discreetly, more harder, as it were.
Yes, at home, whatever.
So they don't feel safe in their jobs. And that must be a very common problem all the time, and it's a situation, I think, where companies and managers of teams, divisional managers, directors, but people implementing these company goals need to realise that actually they have to be a bit more supportive of their employees and actually listen to what their employees might have to say, even if it's not necessarily good news, as it were, with regards to, say, the working environment. But organisations that do properly embrace it, I think, put themselves in a much better place, and
they get more out of it.
They get more out of it, and they get more out of their employees.
We get more out of their employee, and their employees are happier.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would like to see something. I suppose creating an environment of trust, where you can actually be vulnerable and say, look, I need some support this week, I'm overrun, and they're not seen less than. You'd like to see something more formal like that with a number of companies, I suppose, and people in business.
It's up to those organisations, isn't it? But those organisations that basically have a positive attitude towards their employees and a positive attitude towards their customers are organisations which are going to be more adept at surviving in the future than those which don't listen to their employees, don't listen to their employees' concerns and things like that. I think one of the important things here is that, when an employee finds themselves in a difficult situation, I think the saying is, when in a hole, stop digging, is basically, if somebody feels stuck or having difficulty, it's an open attitude, which is say so, don't be scared, and actually there aren't any repercussions, and actually it's about, if you don't feel comfortable in your workload, then we as an employer or that person as a manager, say for example, will listen to that person's plight and actually do something about it.
I don't know whether people believe that, I just with the few people that I've spoken to over the last couple of weeks, whether they believe they can actually voice their opinion and not lose their job or have a mark against their name. I think that this is a culture thing that we need to change.
Yeah, they probably can't. They probably can't. It's about people, individuals themselves who have this opportunity to actually exercise it in the manner that basically you're saying, which is have a positive attitude towards your employees and people who are your customers.
So it has to come from the top down.
Yeah, it has to come from the top down. Yeah.
Yeah, that feeling of safety and trust, and that they're not going to lose their job. I mean, it doesn't quite make sense to me that there's this old school idea of sticking to it and we're not going to, they've just got to get on with it. They're employed for a certain period of time, and if they're working from home, well, tough luck, they're working from home because quite often you don't know about it, or they've found a workaround because it's not working. So there's this get on with it sort of idea, and you end up losing your resource because they quit the company and they leave because they don't have the transparency for real there. I think, as you were just saying, it has to come from the leaders to actually create a safe and happy environment, which is what we're talking about, but not just in words, in reality, and get the most out of our employees so that they feel satisfied themselves and happier themselves, wanting to be there and wanting to contribute. Do you think this is the way of the future, I suppose the Googles and all the rest of it, the way that they're functioning? Do you think that's the way business is going to go? I'm talking about, with employee engagement and communications and soft skills. Do you think that's the future?
Probably, if people like you, for example, keep pushing it as an agenda and keep reinforcing the message that soft skills, interpersonal skills, relationship management are areas that people can actually look at with regards to themselves and actually improve themselves, and therefore get more out of the teams that
well, it improves that. You've just said it creates confidence. Confidence means that we're going to be more creative. If we're more creative, we're going to be able to contribute to our business more, as long as there's an avenue for the voice and they're not shut down. And is there anything that you would recommend to anyone who, I suppose, talking about relationship management, talking about customers, anything that you would recommend that would enhance the way they feel if they're not feeling really confident, or they don't really understand what relationship management is? Maybe we haven't expressed what relationship management is. It's relationships in business, and forming them so that they're profitable, and also, I suppose, help people gain from them so that we all benefit from them. Do you have anything to add to relationship management at all?
Well, to be honest, things that work in the work environment in this sort of area actually probably work in the home environment as well. And actually, it's a skill set that they can take home and actually exercise.
I would love to see that
with their partner or with their families or other people who make up their home life when they get home. And if they have that same positive attitude with regards to how they themselves fit in with those people around them, then again they'll probably find that they will have a much healthier and rich
home life.
Life than they would do otherwise. So there's the skills we learn in the office or in the workplace.
They're transferable.
Probably do transfer straight back into the home life as well. Yeah.
And I think the ones that we learn in the home life can be transferred into the work environment, provided the ones in the home life are healthy ones. And we also, I was talking to someone the other day, saying, look, we're now on board with personal trainers everywhere, and we want fitness in the workplace and fitness in our homes, and we're out there doing the runs, the right food, the right water. Why aren't we doing that for the way that we communicate with people and helping our home life situation and with our partners being more attentive? I was discussing this evening, that partners are coming home and someone's cooking dinner and someone's utilising technology, or they're on the phone, or they're finishing off some work, and they're holding a conversation with someone or their partner. They're not really being attentive. And if we went into Selfridges or somewhere, we would want that attention. You're serving me, I would want that attention. And yet if they were on the phone and they were talking to someone else, we'd get pretty peeved. And yet we're doing this with our partners at home. And I think if we changed that way at home and we were more attentive, especially in that first 10 or 15 minutes when we're at home, that can easily be transferred into the workplace to be, we talk about using the word focus, but to be more attentive, and more attentive to the client, to the customer, getting to know them, creating a relationship with them, a bond with them, and then doing the business with them. I would like to see that, so that it was actually full circle, that it can keep going round and round. I'd like to see something like that.
It's probably easier to achieve it in the workplace than it is actually
in the home life.
In the home life, maybe.
Or is that just you saying that?
No, because I mean, as you say this, one rather imagines sort of trying to herd sheep or something. It's.
I'm from the outback. It's okay to do sheep. I'm quite good at that.
So it's a godforsaken task, So. Whereas actually people in the workplace are naturally attuned, as it were, to work to whatever the goal is. In the workplace, it's about how your attitude toward people. In the home life, it's also about your attitude towards people.
Absolutely.
But it's probably harder because people don't necessarily feel attuned to the same corporate goal, as it were, that you have in the workplace.
Is it easier to quit the home life or quit work?
So you'll probably need more patience getting the team environment in the home life. But the message here, isn't it, is about your attitude to other people.
Yes,
if you have a
absolutely.
positive attitude to other people, and
respect.
Exactly. If you treat others as you would wish others to treat you, and if you think, know and understand about where that person is coming from, who you're dealing with, then, and if you align or transform yourself a little bit, as it were, to fit in with them, then you're probably going to have a lot more successful relationship with them, whether it's one of your employees, whether it's someone you report into from above, and their attitude towards you, or whether it's your customer who you actually trade with. So yes, and that's your point here, isn't it? That knowing and understanding how to manage relationships is a good
It's actually
place.
paramount to I think having a more profitable business, having healthier and happier employees, and having a more balanced life. I think is the soft skills that weren't really that important, I think, are actually paramount for the future of business. What I would like to see is coaches in businesses that have got a number of employees, that a coach comes along, once a month or once a fortnight, and they're there for the day, and they might do a short training program in the morning on how to communicate, or something to do with EQ or body language, and then they're available that day, for every 10 or 15 minutes, so that people that don't feel comfortable enough to bring an issue to their team leader could actually bring an issue to a coach, and then that coach can collate it and deliver that to the board, the CEO, whoever it is that wants to have a more profitable company, and say, hey, by the way, you may not know, but your employees are feeling this. Well, we've got schemes in place. Why aren't they utilising them? Because they're frightened they're going to get the sack, basically, at the end of the day, or they're going to have a black mark against their name. I'd like to see a coach or someone in place that's not HR, that isn't... they're worried about being formally addressed in some way, where it's delivered, if you like, from the coach, but in an anonymous way. What do you think of that idea?
It's a very good idea.
I'm glad you said that.
It's
I know we haven't discussed anything before.
It's another way to bring about the same result, as it were, which is basically effectively sort of delivering a service which listens to the employees, for example, and then talks to management and basically says, actually, there isn't an alignment here.
Yes.
There's a misalignment between how you perceive things and actually how the message is received by your employees.
And everyone's doing a workaround or something, no different to any consultant role anyway.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of a coach going every fortnight or for a day or once a month, so that they get used to this over a period of time. So by the time the third month comes around, they're going to tell you the real truth of what's happening.
Yeah.
And then you can put in a plan based on true information. It was just an idea that I came up with. I was talking to someone that may want to have that in the legal profession. And I thought, this is a really good idea that I'd like to see across businesses, where you don't have to have someone in-house full-time. Some way we can actually get true information to change the strategy, and then people will start to learn the soft skills and introduce them into their home life and into the business life, and it becomes more profitable. I saw it as a fairly elegant solution.
I'd have thought people who took on board what you're suggesting there would place their businesses in a better and stronger place than they would have been before, and they would have nothing to lose from the process, especially when you consider how much it costs organisations with employment disputes, for example,
replacing employees,
litigation costs that go with it, and so on, and the costs of replacing people who have left where
you lose the knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. So the downside is enormous, and the positives are minimal relative to the costs that incurred. Absolutely huge is the positive.
Okay, Neville, thank you very much for joining me this evening.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Vicky.